What happens when a beloved television host comes face to face with pure royal entitlement on live television? In just 34 seconds, one shocking comment would turn a friendly interview into the most explosive celebrity meltdown ever caught on camera. But before we dive into this jaw-dropping moment, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now because we're pulling back the curtain on royalty's dark side, exposing entitled celebrities and their shocking behavior the cameras never showed you. We've got the raw footage they don't want you to see, and you won't want to miss a single reveal. Drop a comment below and let us know what you think about this outrageous behavior. Now, let's get into what really went down. The studio lights were blazing bright that evening. Diana Sawyer sat in her chair, poised and professional as always. She had interviewed presidents, world leaders, and countless celebrities. But tonight's guest was different. Tonight, she was sitting down with Prince Harry, and the tension in the air was already thick enough to cut with a knife. The interview started normally enough. Diana welcomed him with her signature warm smile, the kind that had made her America's most trusted journalist for decades. The audience applauded politely as Harry walked onto the set, waving with that practiced royal wave we've all seen 1,000 times. "Welcome. Thank you so much for being here," Diana said, her voice calm and welcoming. Harry settled into his chair, adjusting his jacket. "Thanks for having me," he replied, but there was something in his tone already. Something off. A hint of impatience, maybe even annoyance. Diana started with what seemed like a softball question. "You've been very vocal lately about your experiences. Can you tell our audience what motivated you to speak out?" Harry leaned back, and that's when viewers at home started to notice something. His body language was closed off, arms crossed, jaw tight. "Well, Diana," he began, and the way he said her name, it wasn't respectful. It was almost mocking. "I think that's a rather simplistic way of putting it, don't you?" Diana's smile didn't falter. She was a professional. "I'm just trying to understand your perspective," she said gently. "Are you?" Harry shot back. "Or are you trying to get me to say something controversial for your ratings?" The audience went quiet. You could hear the uncomfortable shifting in seats. Diana handled it with grace. "I'm here to have an honest conversation," she said. "That's what we do on this show." Harry laughed, but it wasn't a friendly laugh. It was cold, bitter. Honest conversation? Is that what you call it when you twist people's words to fit whatever narrative you're selling? Diana took a breath. "I've never twisted anyone's words. I report the truth." "Your truth?" Harry interrupted. "There's a difference." Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Diana, bless her heart, tried to redirect. She asked him about his charity work, about the causes he claimed to care about, but Harry wasn't having it. "You know what your problem is?" Harry said, leaning forward now, pointing his finger. "You people in the media, you think you have the right to pick apart everyone's lives. You think you can judge us, question us, like we owe you something." Diana remained calm. "The public has questions. That's natural when someone chooses to live in the spotlight." "Chooses?" Harry's voice rose. "I was born into this. I didn't choose anything." "But you've done numerous interviews," Diana pointed out, her tone still measured and fair. "You've written books, done documentaries. Those were choices." Harry's face flushed red. "Because I had to set the record straight. Because people like you were spreading lies." "I've never spread lies about you," Diana said firmly. "I've only reported on what you've said publicly and what's been verified." "Verified by who?" Harry demanded. "Your so-called sources? Anonymous insiders? It's all rubbish." The audience was completely silent now. This wasn't just an uncomfortable interview anymore. This was turning into something else entirely. Diana tried again to steer things back on track. "Let's talk about your family," she said. "You've spoken about feeling unsupported." "Don't," Harry warned, his voice low and threatening. "Don't go there." "It's a fair topic," Diana said. "You've discussed it extensively in other forums." "That was different," Harry snapped. "Those were people who understood, people who got it. You're just another vulture trying to pick at the bones of my trauma for your show." Diana's expression finally showed a crack, not anger, but disappointment. "That's not fair," she said quietly. "I've approached this conversation with nothing but respect." "Respect?" Harry laughed again, that same bitter sound. "You want to talk about respect? How about respecting my privacy? How about respecting that some things are off limits?" "Then why agree to this interview?" Diana asked. and it was a completely reasonable question. If you didn't want to discuss these topics, why come on the show? Harry stood up suddenly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. Maybe I shouldn't have, he shouted. Maybe this was a mistake. Diana remained seated, calm, professional. Please, sit down. We can talk about whatever you're comfortable with. Comfortable? Harry paced now, running his hands through his hair. You think any of this is comfortable? Being interrogated like a criminal? I'm not interrogating you, Diana said, her patience remarkable. I'm asking questions. That's what journalists do. No? Harry pointed at her again. That's what you do. You poke and prod and push until you get the reaction you want. Then you act all innocent, like you didn't know what you were doing. The audience started murmuring. This was getting out of hand. Diana could feel the energy in the room shifting. I think we need to take a breath here, she suggested. Maybe we started with topics that were too sensitive. Everything is sensitive with you people. Harry's voice echoed through the studio. Nothing is ever good enough. I open up. I'm too emotional. I hold back. I'm hiding something. I can't win. This isn't about winning or losing, Diana said, standing now. This is about having a dialogue. A dialogue? Harry's voice dripped with sarcasm. This is a setup. This whole thing. You invited me here to make me look bad. Diana shook her head. That's absolutely not true. I invited you here to tell your story in your own words. My own words? Harry was practically shouting now. You mean the words you'll edit and clip and take out of context to make whatever point you want to make? We don't operate that way, Diana said firmly. This is going out live. There's no editing. What's being said right now is what millions of people are hearing. That seemed to give Harry pause, but only for a second. Good, he said. Then let them hear this. You, Diana Sawyer, are exactly what's wrong with journalism today. You pretend to care. You pretend to be on people's side. But really, you're just after the next big story, the next scandal, the next headline. The audience gasped. Several people looked shocked. Diana, to her credit, kept her composure. I'm sorry you feel that way, she said, but I've built my career on integrity and honesty. Have you? Harry challenged. Or have you built it on exploiting people's pain? On digging into their worst moments and broadcasting it for entertainment? We report the news, Diana said, her voice harder now. And when public figures make public statements, we discuss them. That's not exploitation. That's journalism. It's garbage. Harry yelled. All of it. This show, your questions, your fake concern, it's all garbage. Diana straightened her shoulders. I think we need to end this interview. Oh, now you want to end it? Harry laughed harshly. Now that I'm not playing along with your little script? There is no script, Diana said, but there is respect, and you've crossed a line. I've crossed a line? Harry's face was bright red now. That's rich coming from someone who makes a living crossing lines. Diana turned to the camera, addressing the audience directly. I apologize to everyone watching. This is not how we conduct interviews on this show. Don't apologize for me, Harry shouted. I'm not sorry. Someone needed to call you out, and I'm glad it was me. Then I think you should leave, Diana said, her voice steady but firm. She wasn't backing down anymore. Fine. Harry threw his hands up. I don't need this. I don't need you. I don't need any of you. Diana gestured to someone off camera. Please escort our guest out. I can find my own way out, Harry snapped, ripping off his microphone. The sound of it disconnecting created a loud pop through the speakers. This is exactly why I left in the first place. Because of people like you. Because of this constant, never-ending circus. You're the one creating the circus right now, Diana said quietly, and that comment seemed to hit a nerve. Harry stopped in his tracks. What did you say? Diana didn't repeat it. She just looked at him, her expression sad more than anything else. You know what? Harry said, his voice shaking with anger. You're not worth it. This show isn't worth it. None of this is worth it. Then go, Diana said simply. And that's when Harry really lost it. You don't get to dismiss me. Do you know who I am? Do you know what I've been through? I know exactly who you are, Diana said, and her tone was measured, controlled. And I know what you've been through because you've told everyone, multiple times, in multiple venues, for profit. The audience collectively gasped again. Diana had finally pushed back, and it was devastating in its honesty. Harry's mouth opened and closed. For a moment, he seemed at a loss for words. Then he found them. How dare you? He whispered. How dare you judge me? I'm not judging you, Diana said. I'm stating facts. You came on this show by choice. You agreed to this interview. And now you're angry because I'm asking you to be accountable for your own words. Accountable? Harry's voice rose again. You want to talk about accountability? What about yours? What about all the times your reporting has hurt people, destroyed reputations, ruined lives? If you have specific examples, I'm happy to discuss them, Diana said calmly. But throwing around accusations isn't the same as having a conversation. I don't want a conversation with you, Harry shouted. I want you to admit what you really are, a leech, a parasite feeding off other people's misery. Diana took a breath. I'm going to ask you one more time to leave. Security is on their way. Security? Harry laughed incredulously. You're going to have me removed? Like I'm some common criminal? You're being hostile and disruptive, Diana said. This is my show, and I'm asking you to leave. Harry looked around at the audience, his arms spread wide. Is everyone seeing this? Is everyone watching? This is what they do. They invite you in, they provoke you, and then when you react, they make you the villain. But the audience wasn't on his side. You could see it in their faces. Some looked uncomfortable. Others looked disappointed. A few were even shaking their heads. Diana saw it too. The audience can make up their own minds, she said. They've seen everything that's happened here tonight. That seemed to deflate Harry a little. He looked around again, realizing that the room wasn't sympathetic to his outburst. Fine, he said finally. I'm leaving, but not because you're telling me to. Because I choose to. However you need to frame it, Diana said, and there was a touch of sadness in her voice. Harry started walking toward the exit, but he couldn't resist one more parting shot. He turned back, pointing at Diana. You'll regret this, he said. You all will. Diana didn't respond. She just watched him go. As Harry reached the edge of the stage, he stopped again. You know what your problem is? He called back. You think you're better than everyone else. You think your judgment matters. I never claimed to be better than anyone. Diana said, I'm just doing my job. Your job is to destroy people, Harry yelled. My job is to seek the truth, Diana corrected. And if you can't handle that, then maybe you shouldn't put yourself in these situations. Harry opened his mouth to respond, but security had arrived. 2 large men in suits stood on either side of him. Don't touch me. Harry warned them, I'm leaving. Sir, we need to escort you out, one of the security guards said politely, but firmly. I said don't touch me. Harry jerked away from them. I know the way out. The cameras followed him as he stormed off the stage, security trailing behind him. As he disappeared into the wings, you could still hear him yelling, though the words weren't clear anymore. Diana turned back to the camera, her face composed despite everything that had just happened. Ladies and gentlemen, she said to the audience, both in the studio and at home, I apologize for what you just witnessed. That is not the kind of discourse we encourage on this show. The studio audience applauded. It started slow, just a few people, but then it grew, louder and louder until the entire audience was on their feet, applauding Diana for handling the situation with such grace and professionalism. Diana smiled, a real smile this time. Thank you, she said. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll have a very different kind of conversation. As the show cut to commercial, the crew rushed onto the stage. Some checked on Diana, making sure she was okay. Others were already on their phones, no doubt dealing with the immediate fallout. This was going to be everywhere within minutes. Diana sat back down in her chair, taking a sip of water. Her hands were steady. She had handled hundreds of difficult interviews over the years, but this one would go down in history, not because of anything she had done wrong, but because she had done everything right. She had remained calm. She had stayed professional. She had given Harry every opportunity to have a real conversation. And when he chose chaos instead, she had stood her ground. She had protected her show, her integrity, and her audience. In the control room, the producers were going crazy. This was unprecedented. The phones were already ringing off the hook. Social media was exploding. Everyone wanted to know what had just happened, what it meant, and what would happen next. But Diana wasn't thinking about any of that. She was thinking about the interview, about where it had gone wrong, about what she could have done differently. That's the kind of journalist she was, always analyzing, always learning, always trying to do better. When the show came back from commercial, Diana addressed the camera directly. For those just joining us, we had a guest who became hostile and had to be removed from the studio, she explained. It's unfortunate, but it happens. We always strive for respectful dialogue here, and when that's not possible, we have to make difficult decisions. She paused, choosing her next words carefully. I want to be clear about something. This show has always been about truth and accountability. We ask tough questions because that's our responsibility. We push for real answers because that's what our audience deserves. And we will never apologize for doing journalism the right way, even when it makes people uncomfortable. The audience applauded again, even louder this time. Diana continued, "Now, I'd like to bring out someone who understands the importance of honest communication, someone who knows that being in the public eye comes with responsibilities, not just privileges." She went on to introduce her next guest, and the show continued. But everyone watching knew that this episode would be remembered not for whoever came on next, but for what had just happened. For the moment when entitlement met integrity, and integrity won. In the green room backstage, Harry was still fuming. He was on his phone, probably calling his people, spinning the story before it could be spun against him. But it was too late for that. The interview had been live. Millions had watched it happen in real time. There was no controlling this narrative. Meanwhile, on stage, Diana continued with her show as if nothing had happened. That's the mark of a true professional. The ability to move forward, to not let chaos derail you, to stay focused on the mission. And her mission had always been clear: to inform, to enlighten, to hold people accountable regardless of their status or title. The rest of the show went smoothly. By the time Diana signed off, the internet was on fire. Clips of the confrontation were everywhere. People were taking sides, though most seemed to support Diana. They had seen what happened. They had watched Harry become increasingly hostile and unreasonable. They had seen Diana try, repeatedly, to de-escalate and redirect. And they had seen her finally stand up and say, "Enough." That's what resonated with viewers. Not the drama itself, but Diana's response to it. She hadn't yelled back. She hadn't gotten flustered. She had remained the adult in the room, even when her guests refused to do the same. As the studio lights dimmed and the crew began breaking down the set, Diana sat in her chair for a moment longer. She was thinking about the interview, about Harry's accusations, about whether she could have handled it differently. But deep down, she knew she had done the right thing. Sometimes, doing the right thing means standing up to people who are used to getting their way. Sometimes it means saying no, drawing a line, refusing to be bullied or manipulated. And that's exactly what Diana Sawyer had done. On live television, in front of millions of viewers, she had shown what real integrity looks like. She had demonstrated that no amount of fame, no royal title, no public sympathy could excuse bad behavior. She had reminded everyone watching that respect is a two-way street, and that being a victim of circumstance doesn't give anyone the right to victimize others. The story would dominate headlines for days. Everyone would have an opinion. Some would defend Harry, claiming he had been provoked or that Diana had been too harsh. But most would see what really happened: a skilled journalist trying to do her job while an entitled guest threw a tantrum because he wasn't being treated like royalty. Because here's the thing about Diana Sawyer that Harry had clearly forgotten or never understood. She doesn't treat nobody, anyone, like royalty. She treats everyone the same, with respect, yes, but also with the expectation that they'll be honest, thoughtful, and willing to engage in good faith. When Harry proved unwilling or unable to do that, she didn't bend her standards to accommodate him. She maintained them, even when it meant ending the interview. That's what made the moment so powerful. That's what made it more than just another celebrity meltdown. It was a statement about values, about principles, about the line between holding people accountable and tearing them down. Diana had stayed firmly on the right side of that line, even when Harry had tried to drag her across it. As viewers rewatched the clips, they noticed details they'd missed the first time. The way Diana had tried to redirect the conversation multiple times. The way she had offered Harry opportunities to reset, to start over, to engage differently. The way she had remained calm, even as his voice got louder and his accusations got wilder. And finally, the way she had taken control when it became clear that the situation wasn't going to improve. That last part was crucial. Some people might have let it continue, thinking that more drama would make better television. But Diana had ended it because she valued her show's integrity more than ratings. She had protected her audience from further hostility. She had demonstrated that there are limits to what's acceptable, even in the name of entertainment or news. In the days that followed, other journalists and media figures would weigh in on what happened. Most praised Diana for her handling of the situation. They recognized that she had been put in an impossible position and had navigated it with grace and professionalism. A few criticized her, but their arguments were weak, mostly amounting to the idea that she should have been more accommodating or sympathetic. But Diana didn't need their approval. She had her audience's support, and more importantly, she had her own conviction that she had done the right thing. That's what mattered. Not the critics or the defenders, but the simple fact that when tested, she had stayed true to her principles. The interview became a case study in communication, in conflict resolution, in what happens when someone refuses to engage in good faith. It was shown in journalism schools as an example of how to maintain composure under pressure. It was discussed in psychology classes as an illustration of entitled behavior and narcissistic rage. It became more than just a celebrity moment. It became a cultural touchstone. And at the center of it all was Diana Sawyer, who had simply done what she always did: asked questions, sought truth, and refused to compromise her integrity. She had reminded everyone watching that being famous or important doesn't exempt you from basic decency, that having a platform comes with responsibilities, that if you're going to tell your story publicly, you have to be prepared for people to ask about it. Harry had wanted to control the narrative, to be interviewed on his terms only, with questions he approved and responses he didn't have to defend. But that's not how real journalism works. That's not how honest conversation works. And Diana had refused to play along with that fantasy. So when people ask what really happened that night, when they want to know how a simple interview turned into one of the most talked about television moments of the year, the answer is simple. Entitlement met integrity, and integrity didn't blink.